DraftKings.com. Dave Lochran, Adam Shar. 5 games Friday, taking you into the weekend. We're here, Adam. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yesterday we got a big trade, threw a wrench into a whole lot. And now today, well, the trade didn't happen today, but you have one of the two teams that was involved in the trade playing today, the New York Knicks. And as we know, Dennis Smith, Wesley Matthews, DeAndre Jordan will not be playing. Not only will they not be playing, but they no longer have Trey Burke, who was later mentioned that he was included in that trade, Tim Hardaway, Courtney Lee, and of course Kristaps Porzingis, which doesn't matter here. But yeah, the Knicks situation is something you and I talked about a lot today. Just pretty much trying to figure out what it's going to look like, and that's a big part of today's slate.
Yeah, unfortunately it is, but and a really difficult matchup for them too. So yeah, there's value there. We'll talk about it. It should be a fun one.
Okay, I guess. You're trying to be nice. No, it's not that bad. There are a few positions though that are like dreadfully thin. Oddly enough, shooting guard you could almost argue is weaker on. Well, you know what? We'll get there when we get there. Let's start it off with Charlotte and Memphis. We've got the Charlotte Hornets at home here. Not a big surprise. They are favored by 7.5 points. They were 7-point favorites before Conley was ruled out, but that could have already been factoring it in. 204 total, low scoring or low projected scoring game. And it's actually a Charlotte team that over the last month, Charlotte's playing at an increasingly low pace. They're actually bottom 9 in pace, 98.86 possessions per 48. Grizzlies 96.1. So this is going to be a slow game, no question. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Mike Conley is sidelined in this one, who's been playing huge minutes. And then you've got Kyle Anderson also out, and we still don't know about Jaren Jackson. So a lot going on here. Garrett Temple questionable as well. Let's kick it off with the Grizzlies. I think we may have a little bit of a disagreement on Shelvin Mack and Javon Carter, but we'll get into that right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that this value opened up because I think it gives us alternatives to the Knicks guys going against Boston. You obviously have a more appealing matchup for these Memphis guys. And with Temple doubtful, Conley out, and Anderson out, they're really short on ball handlers now. So I'm expecting Javon Carter and Shelvin Mack both to start now. But either way, I think that they need to play a lot of minutes regardless. I have Carter at about 28 minutes. I have Mack at 30. Mack being the more productive of the two, whether he starts or comes off the bench, he'd be the one that I'm more interested in. And then you also get value with Bruno Caboclo, who has been playing more minutes lately. Not particularly productive minutes, but more minutes, and now should see even more time without Anderson. In their most recent game, he was the direct backup for Kyle Anderson. When Anderson got in early foul trouble, he subbed in for him. He subbed in for him throughout the game, and now I fully expect him to get most of the run with Anderson out. So it gives us a couple of pretty decent value plays now.
It does. It definitely does. Mike Conley surprisingly only missed one game this year. Not a whole lot to glean from it. I think where our disagreement came was before Anderson went down and everything. But I did expect. I think you had Mack and Carter both at 26 minutes, assuming just Conley was out. I did have Mack playing more minutes than Carter. Now that was obviously just a projection, just a guess. But I would have expected Mack to get the first crack at playing bigger minutes here. But nevertheless, Conley was out in one game this season, mid-December, and Mack got the start, played 26 minutes. In that same game, Carter came off the bench, and he played, I think, 25 minutes. But they were down by a lot. I mean, they were down by 25 points midway through the third quarter to the Warriors. Mack played 8.5 minutes in the first and then 9 in the second quarter, then 8 in the third quarter. So, I mean, given that rotation, you were looking upwards of 35 minutes. The interesting thing here is we don't even have to get into that argument anymore because, I mean, now that Kyle Anderson's out, he had played 34 minutes his last time out. I'm projecting Shelvin Mack to get more than enough minutes to justify being as cheap as he is, and he's very cheap.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And he's productive enough when he plays. If he does start here, then you lose a little bit of usage because he's playing alongside Marc Gasol and Jaren Jackson potentially. Jackson, as far as I know, is still questionable. But The minutes obviously make up for it. If he comes off the bench, then he gets more usage. I also assume his minutes would be staggered so that he's on the floor with the second unit a bit anyway. So I think that it's a pretty appealing spot for Shelvin Mack.
Yeah, and don't confuse this with us saying that we love Shelvin Mack as a player. But more so when you're talking about like Shelvin Mack and Kadeem Allen and Mario Hezonja and these type of guys, Shelvin Mack has proven before that if he gets 30 minutes, at nearly minimum salary, he can be all right. And that's really all it comes down to here. He has played, by the way, and this is what's kind of interesting. He has played 400 minutes with Conley and Anderson off the floor this year. 33% usage rate, Adam. So while his per minute production is only at 0.86, not great, not terrible, 33% assist rate. Clearly, as you pointed out, the shortage of ball handlers is definitely going to help him in this spot. I could see Shelvin Mack being perfectly fine here. And I do think he's one of the better values on the entire slate. As difficult as it is to feel decent about playing him, sometimes you just have to do it. What do you make of Carter from a value standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I'm much less interested in Carter. He just doesn't really do a whole lot when he's out there. We've seen him get minutes before, not under this exact situation, obviously, but still he just doesn't do a whole lot. And with Gasol still playing, he still can, they can still run the offense through him. He's a good passer. It's not like you have to have multiple of these, backcourt subs really contributing in that regard. I think that Mac plus Gasol is enough to get it done. Plus Justin Holiday is good enough too. So, I still think that Carter is going to really take a back seat here. I'm much less interested in him than I am in Mac.
Me too, because with Mac, we at least know that he's proven capable of playing that role in the past. It's interesting. If you take Gasol back even to the start of last season, his per minute production actually goes down with Conley off the floor. I don't know. It's not significant. It's like 1.15 to 1.08, but Gasol's still going to get a lot of work here. He's going to shoulder most of the load, as you just noted. While I still don't think he's playing at 100%, it kind of doesn't matter here, especially given the immense playing time that he's seen lately. And the rest of this team, I mean, look at the rest of this team, man, especially if Jackson's out. I'm talking about Jermichael Green, Bruno Caboclo, Ivan Rabb, God, Justin Holiday, who with the extended minutes has been unbelievably awful. Even though he's probably going to see upwards of 40 minutes again today with Anderson and Cosby both expected out. I think you get my point here, though. I mean, Gasol is the guy. There's really no question.
Yeah, but as far as Holiday, I still like him as a value guy because you compare.
Yeah, he's still going to play 40 minutes. He just sucks.
Yeah, exactly. But does he suck any more than Mario Hezonja against Boston does?
No, absolutely not. He still sucks, though.
Yeah, no question. I hate the guy. Not the guy. I hate the DFS player.
I'm sure he's a decent person.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, you get the value there. You get Caboclo, who's really, really cheap, and yeah, I mean, even Jaren Jackson in my original crunch on FanDuel, I'm getting a pretty healthy amount of, assuming he plays.
Right. Yeah, Conley being out of the lineup. It's funny because the per minute numbers for really the whole team, you don't see big increases, actually decreases in a lot of spots. But it's hard to look at that and say, somebody like Mike Conley, who has seen, look, this season he's been very good. He is still a 27% usage player, 33% assist rate. He's playing 34 minutes per game more lately. 16 field goals per game are out of the lineup, so it's got to be soaked up somewhere. And I think you'll see that happen a lot with the guys that we just talked about. But we'll still wait. We'll still wait on Jaren Jackson and see where that goes. What are you thinking right now? Because they decided not to give us any updates on him, just on everybody else.
Right. For right now, I have him in just because they've already ruled out Conley and Anderson, and they haven't ruled him out. So I'm hoping he plays. I have no idea. Jermichael Green, I really don't know what to do with either. I mean, he played 7 minutes 3 games ago, said he was injured and couldn't finish the game, sat out, came back, played 5 minutes. I don't know if they're just intentionally not really playing him until after the deadline or what they're doing. I gave him 20 minutes right now. If Jackson's out, I would give him some more, I guess. But I don't really feel that confident about it. I just wanted to point it out because he's 3,600 on FanDuel. I don't think that's a crazy spot to take a chance on him maybe getting some actual minutes tonight.
I don't think it's crazy either, but man, it's definitely concerning.
I don't. unless Jackson's out, I don't intend on taking a chance on him on DraftKings. But I mean, at the minimum, where you can drop him on FanDuel, he
Right.
clearly has upside if he does play, because we have no idea why he didn't play last game.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. It's definitely sketchy. Ivan Rabb played 23 minutes in that game, had 25 fantasy points.
Yeah, 5 in overtime.
Right.
After
Yeah.
Derek Jackson fouled out in 22 minutes.
Yeah, and not only that, like we've seen instances where, like a couple games ago, where Ivan Rabb was poised to play good minutes with Jim Michael Green out, and played 5 total minutes against Denver. So that's not a spot that I'm personally looking to get to.
No.
Let's talk about Charlotte on the other side here. Cody Zeller remains sidelined. This team defensively has struggled since he's been out, for the last month, and it still looks like he's about a week or so away from returning. You've got a Memphis team that, they're 7-point dogs. They're not a good basketball team. They don't have an efficient offense whatsoever. But defensively and just from a pace of play standpoint, they still don't make for the greatest matchup. Is there anybody that you really like here when it comes to a Hornets team that on these dynamic pricing sites like DraftKings have seen their salaries drop?
I'm getting a good amount of Kemba on both sites, and it's not because I like the matchup. It's not even because I like Kemba right now. I still believe that he's taking a hit because of Cody Zeller not being on the floor. We've seen his assist percentage come down. We've seen his shooting efficiency come down, and it's been a full month now of this. So it's not that I really like him in this spot. It's that I really like the price tag, and I really hate the point guard position overall. So he's showing up in around 30% of my lineups on both sites right now in the initial crunch that I did. And then also as a value play that I expect to have virtually no ownership on DraftKings, DraftKings in particular, because you can roster the 2 centers. Bismack Biyombo has played like 16, 14, and 12 minutes in his last 3 games, but all 3 of those games were against smaller teams. 4 games ago was the last time he played real minutes, and it just so happened to be against this Memphis team where he played 29 minutes. I don't expect Willie Hernan-Gomez to be asked to spend more time than he has to defending Marc Gasol. I don't expect Marvin Williams to spend a whole lot of time there. I think that you certainly can make an argument for Biyombo at low ownership at 3,900 on DraftKings.
How tall do you think Biyombo is, if you had to guess?
6'9".
Isn't that crazy? I think so many people assume that Biyombo is like this big traditional center, but he
sounds like he should be.
Exactly, and he plays like one. I mean, in the sense, if he can play not good basketball, but you can put him out there against bigger lineups. He plays bigger than he is. He's a pretty meaty fella too.
Yeah. I mean, he hasn't been good defensively. It's not like I think he slows down Gasol. Right. It's just he probably doesn't get embarrassed as much as Hernan-Gomez.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think I'm with you. If you're max entering Kemba Walker, someone that's going to show up, that you're going to get some of because of that price point. I just can't say that I'm confident in him. And I really feel the same way about pretty much everybody on this Hornets team for one reason or another.
Yeah, it's the same here. Like Josh and I talked about Kemba this morning, and we both loved going to Mike Conley as a pivot, but that's off the table now. So you really just don't have a whole lot around him because Kyrie is more expensive. Rubio is a lot cheaper. When you're getting to a point guard in that price range, it's kind of Kemba. Right.
Yeah. And it's not like you're getting Kyrie Irving at a discount anymore, right? He's up to 9,600 on DraftKings, 10.5 on FanDuel. So he's $1,900 cheaper on FanDuel. And on DraftKings, you're getting him at a $1,500 discount. It is significant despite the matchup. And as you pointed out, that assist rate has been concerning lately. That was one of the biggest reasons that his numbers have suffered, especially his floor. Let's talk New York and Boston here. We've got the New York Knicks. Just to recap, I won't include the draft picks because it's unimportant from a fantasy standpoint right now. And obviously Porzingis is gone, but he hasn't played anyway. So the Knicks lost him. They lost Trey Burke. And I say lost, take that lightly. Sometimes addition by subtraction, not necessarily in this case, but Tim Hardaway Jr. and Courtney Lee. Well, Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr. had been playing, big minutes. Burke got above 30 as we expected last game after the game where Kadeem Allen came in and took all the minutes away. And then Tim Hardaway had been seeing, consistent 30-plus minutes in the starting lineup. So they're gone. Moutier's out. Frank Ntilikina remains out. And then Dennis Smith Jr., Wes Matthews, and DeAndre Jordan all of them will not be playing. So first, before we do anything in terms of the analysis here, let's go ahead and break down who is on this roster. You and I did it earlier today. And the one question mark, well, we have Allen, Dotson, Hazonia, Knox, Cantor, Cornette, Mitchell Robinson, Lance Thomas, Trier, and Vonleh. But does Isaiah Hicks, is he going to play?
I have no
Is
idea.
he alive?
I
on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure that he's healthy. I don't know anything about him other than he hasn't played.
Pretty much. So let's go ahead and just break it down. I think we have, when I say a pretty good idea of what to expect, take that with a grain of salt. It's David Fizdale. This is the first game we've seen with any of these guys not in the lineup with what we have now. But we're on the same page here as what we discussed earlier. I think we landed in the same spot. So I'll let you throw out where we stand here with what we expect to see. Let's start with the guard position, and then we'll work our way through the forwards and the front court.
Yeah, so I mean, as you said, this is all just a best guess because we really have no idea how this is going to go. But my best guess is that you get Trier at around 32 minutes. You get Kadeem Allen around 30 minutes. You get Mario Hezonja picking up the rest of those guard minutes. Or sorry, you get Dotson around 26 minutes. And then you get Hezonja picking up the rest of those guard minutes. Knox, I have Knox around 32 starting at the 3. I have Hezonja picking up the rest of those minutes, which would be 16 there. So we're up to 24 on Hezonja.
8 at shooting guard.
Yeah, 8 at shooting guard, 16 at the 3. Vonleh, I expect to start at the 4. I gave him 32 minutes, 28 at the 4, 4 at center. Lance Thomas picking up 16 behind Vonleh, and then Hezonja getting those other 4. So that puts us at 28 for Hezonja. Cornette starting at center, playing around 26 minutes. Robinson playing 18 behind him, and then Vonleh getting those other 4. So it ends up being Trier, Vonleh, and Knox at 32 minutes, Allen at 30, Cornette at 26, Dotson at 26, Hezonja at 28, Thomas at 16.
Right. And the reason this is speculation is because, for one, we're assuming Enes Kanter doesn't play, but he did get 9 minutes last game, and we really don't know if Enes Kanter is going to get minutes here. It's still a question mark. I mean, I would lean towards no, but even 10 to 12 minutes from Kanter can disrupt things here. Last game, he entered for the first time with about 5 minutes remaining in the third quarter, and then he played about 4 minutes into the fourth. That was his only run. At the time, they were down pretty significantly to the Dallas Mavericks. Now, this is tough, but I think the one way to look at this, which I think is kind of important, is let's assume. I mean, Isaiah Hicks has not played. Is it possible that he plays, Adam? You know what? Who knows? Like, I honestly don't even know if he's healthy. I couldn't find anything on it. I think he is. He's on the active roster, but that's all. So the interesting thing here is Mario Hezonja was drafted as a swingman, shooting guard, small forward. He played a lot of that in Orlando. But really, you're looking at Kadeem Allen, Trier, and Dotson as your only actual true guards, if you're not including Hezonja. And even if you are, that's 4. So it makes sense to put Trier and Allen at or above 30, just because the lack of depth you have here at the position. It's a little bit different, though, in the front court, because you still have Vonleh, who we expect to move back to the 4 with Cornette healthy. You still have Cornette. You have Mitchell Robinson. If necessary, you have Enes Kanter. You have Lance Thomas, and you have Hezonja, who's played minutes at the 4 as well. So the backcourt and front court are a lot different in terms of depth tonight for the Knicks.
Yeah, no question, and that's why I think it's it's scarier to go to the front court guys. Although Vonleh is the best player on the team, so that makes it a little bit better.
Listen to what you just said.
Yeah, I heard it.
My God, yeah. I still think Cantor's a better player, but he's not playing. So what's
I'm that rotation. I think Vonleh's a more valuable basketball player than Cantor.
he probably is because Cantor defensively is a massive liability.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting too because Vonleh has played 108 minutes without Hardaway, Moutier, Burke, and Cantor. He's averaging 1 1/3 fantasy points per minute. Really solid. I think his rebounding rate was 23.4%, which is sky high. The problem is only 22 of those 108 minutes were played alongside either Cornette or Mitchell Robinson. What does that tell you? That tells you that only 22 of those 108 minutes were played at power forward. And we expect most of his minutes to come at power forward today. So while I like those numbers a lot, I do think it's important to at least keep in mind that Vonleh at the 4 is not the same player as Vonleh at the 5.
Yeah, no question. And I cut his rebounding rate for that reason in my projections. I still have him a little bit over a fantasy point per minute because I think you still see a lot of a facilitator role for him, which he's been good at this year. I think you still see a reasonable amount of usage for him. So, and a decent rebounding percentage, just not Andre Drummond level like it has been in the numbers that you cited. So I still have him as slightly over a fantasy point per minute. I still think he's a good play. Comes with a lot of risk, but I think that he's a good play.
And he's performed well in 3 games against the Boston Celtics, who play pretty solid defense, but don't have the biggest front court. So I don't mind Vonleh at all. I will say, Vonleh's $6K on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's 5,500. And if you look, Luke Cornette also on FanDuel, 5,500. But Cornette on DraftKings is power forward and center eligible, just like Vonleh. He's $1,700 less expensive than Noah Vonleh, Adam. What do you make of that? Because while we do both expect Vonleh to get more minutes, there is a significant discount on DraftKings for Cornette, whereas they're the exact same price on FanDuel.
Yes, I mean, on FanDuel in the initial crunch that I did before the show, Vonleh came in as my highest owned power forward because that price tag's so appealing on him. On DraftKings, I got basically the same amount of Vonleh and Cornette. I got like 32% his own, 27% Vonleh and 25% Cornette on that initial crunch.
Okay. Yeah, probably about right. Do we have any other interest in this Knicks team?
Yeah, I mean, Kadeem Allen on both sites, he's the absolute minimum on FanDuel. He's 33 on DraftKings. It's obviously really difficult to predict what this guy's going to do when he's on the floor. But I did go back and look at the last couple of games, and if you project him for 30 minutes, he would have come in with 10 potential assists and 10 potential rebounds on average. Not to say that we can take a whole lot from those games, but he at least was doing things when he was out there. He's cheap enough where he doesn't have to do a lot. If he plays 30 minutes, it's tough for him to really be bad at this price. He might not. You might not really be happy that you have him, but it's really tough for him to just completely sink your lineup. So I'm getting a lot of him on both sites. Trier, I'm not getting a ton of on DraftKings, but I am getting a lot on FanDuel where he's a 4K shooting guard, really weak position, really nice price tag. So yeah, pretty site dependent on those guys.
Big time. Trier at 4K on FanDuel is one thing. Trier at 4K and shooting guard eligible on FanDuel is another thing. Both of them make him a lot more appealing. He really doesn't have to be that good. If you have to drop him, you can drop him. You get around 30 minutes there. I expect some ball handling duties from him. But going back to what you said about Kadeem Allen, look, is there a lot that we know about this guy in terms of, can we prorate his minutes, per 36 or whatever? Yes, of course we can. But we don't know that much, right? He's played for his career in the NBA, Kadeem Allen has played 142 total minutes, right? So we're really just speculating here. But if you're getting 30 minutes or so and you're dirt cheap and they really lack a complete void or completely devoid of ball handling guards on this team, then you can do a lot worse at minimum salary. It's kind of that simple. There isn't much more to it. So there you have it. You want to talk Boston?
Sure.
Go ahead. I don't have a whole lot from the Celtics tonight.
I mean, I like Kyrie. The price tag's obviously up there, but he's averaged almost 1.4 fantasy points per minute over the last month. He's playing at Madison Square Garden. If you want to buy into narratives, there's certainly a good one here. It's a terrible Knicks defense. They are on the road, so maybe there's some chance that this game stays competitive later. into the fourth. But I think that especially with how weak the point guard position is, I'm still getting around 20% of Kyrie on both sites. I'm getting a pretty good amount of Jason Tatum as well. Just an appealing price tag, 5,800 on DraftKings and 66 on FanDuel, is just pretty nice. So getting to Kyrie and Tatum the most from this team.
Yeah, I talk about there being exceptions to rules once in a while when it comes to blowouts. I'm so tempted to just say, yeah, this game has no shot.
I'm still shocked we haven't heard that Al Horford's sitting, by the way.
Yeah, surprising, right? Surprising. But hey, crazier things have happened, man. Crazier things have happened in terms of games staying close, games getting blown out. Who knows? There's no reason it should stay close. But in the event that it does, Kyrie Irving is going to smash. It's just, will it? That's a tough one because you're literally talking about a basketball team that that this starting lineup on some teams, none of these guys will be starters.
On some teams, none of these guys would be on the team.
Well, I think Vonleh would be on any team.
Okay, yeah. I meant like a lot of the starters wouldn't be on the team.
No, yeah, I'm saying the starting lineup. Like there are some teams where none of these five would be even at all in a starting lineup.
Right. Agreed.
In terms of not being on a team, oh my God, yeah, yeah. But that's not the case with the Knicks. It's a bad basketball team as they stand tonight. Not to say they'll get all that much better tomorrow, but better than they were today. Do you have anything else on Boston, or do you want to move on?
No, we can move on.
All right. And Luke Cornett is officially active.
Do we have a starting lineup?
Not yet. When we do, I will let you know. We had a question in our Slack chat from Jay Mador. Who did you guys say you liked from New York? Well, I ate some pierogies, man. It's gonna be a rough one. I'm getting that heartburn. Kadeem Allen, he's cheap as shit. So you have him. You have Alonzo Trier, particularly, and then I'll let you give yours. But these are mine. Alonzo Trier, particularly on FanDuel. I'm not saying you can't play him on DraftKings, but there is a significant difference in that price. And he's shooting guard eligible on FanDuel. And then Noah Vonleh, I like him more on FanDuel. I do like Cornett more on DraftKings, where he's 4,300. Assuming that he gets the start here, I'd expect him to play around 26 minutes. Adam, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean,
if you're looking to just flat out punt and hope it goes well, but and sorry, I do think the biggest risk, and I mentioned this to you this morning, I think the biggest risk for minutes could be Hezonja. If he doesn't get those minutes at shooting guard, which is an if, we've seen it happen before, but if he doesn't get those minutes at shooting guard, there is a chance that Hezonja suffers here now that the front court's getting healthier. Okay, floor's yours.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And I think all these guys come with significant risk anyway.
Of course.
And I think that's obvious. But as far as the guys I like the most, really just the cheapest ones you can get. So on FanDuel, I like Allen. I like Vonleh. I like Trier. On DraftKings, I like Allen. I like Cornett. I like Vonleh because he's actually good. And then Hezonja, I'm fine with whatever I get. I don't have a ton of confidence, but he's cheap. So,
right. Pretty much. All right. Let's keep it going here. Only 5 games today, but it gives us time to really break all of them down comprehensively as we strive to do here on the Deeper Dive. And as we promised, no more missing games. All right, Miami and OKC, 219.5 total. OKC 4-point favorites on the road. We'll start with the Miami Heat at home here. I got to tell you something. Did you see Whiteside the other day? I mean, look, I get it. You know, maybe there's some internal issues here. Maybe Spoelstra's just an asshole. Maybe he just doesn't like it. Maybe he likes Bam Adebayo more. Maybe there's a lot of reasons that this is happening. But the other day, on Wednesday, Hassan Whiteside played. So Hassan Whiteside played 3.5 minutes to start the game. Re-enters, and this was not foul trouble, only plays 3.5 minutes. Then he re-enters halfway through the second quarter, plays 3.5 minutes, has 2 fouls, so that's 3. And then plays 8 minutes to open up the second half and never returns. So he played 15 minutes, the lowest minute total we've seen from him in a while. It's so unfortunate, Adam, because when you look at him on the year, he's still almost a 1.4 fantasy point per minute guy. Like, his rebound rate is 25.7%. He has an 8% block rate. Like, from a fantasy standpoint, if you told me I was guaranteed to get 28 minutes from Whiteside at 6,700, I'd say, okay, I'm all right with that. But I can't even guarantee that anymore. It's so unfortunate because just at 6,700, he could be incredible value or he could be a huge disappointment. You really don't know. And he's going up against a big center in Steven Adams and the OKC Thunder today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a spot where you would expect him to get more minutes than Bam, but it's not really matchup based. It has more to do with if Whiteside feels like playing that day and if he stops fouling. And Spoelstra, I think after that last game, even confirmed that the reason Whiteside played 15 minutes had nothing to do with his fouls. Mm-hmm. It just had to do with Whiteside not.
He only had one foul in the first quarter. He played 3.5 minutes.
Right. Yeah. And so it's a total guessing game. I have him at 26 minutes. I have Bam at 22. I don't think I'll end up with a whole lot of either one. It's, a scary matchup anyway. It's just that, at 6,700 on a 5-game slate, Whiteside certainly can, just win a tournament. But the center position today is at least deep enough. Like with Conley out, like I would have liked Gasol anyway, but with Conley out, that I think makes him a little bit even better play. You have Gobert, who we'll talk about, obviously. Jokic, who is my favorite play on the entire slate. So it's still a deep enough position where I don't feel the need to be taking a huge risk and getting Whiteside in a lot of lineups.
You don't have to. And I agree with you. It's just, you see a $6,700 price point and you at least think twice. You at least take a second look at him. Yeah, it's concerning though. And Bam Adebayo, I keep wanting to call him Bam Margera every time I talk. I mean, you're a little young. What are you, 28, 27?
29.
29. I was close.
I just turned 29 like a month ago.
That's right. Yeah. Bam Margera, when I was like a teenager, his shows were ridiculously popular.
They were popular when I was like a young teenager.
Yeah, Jackass. Yeah, you would have been real young.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one that was at his house? You know what I'm talking about?
Viva La Bam.
My man, Viva La Bam. Yeah, and there was another one too. I can't remember what it was, but I was highly entertained because we would go from do what they did on Jackass, and like the running shopping carts into curbs and and all that ridiculous. That was fun when you're younger. So whenever I see Bam, the first thing I think of is Margera, but he doesn't play basketball anyway. Adebayo, even when he gets the minutes, it's not really like he's been that productive anyway. So for me, it's kind of Whiteside or nobody here, and even he is a huge risk. I do really like, because it's a weak position, a weak slate, I think Justice Winslow at his price point is very interesting in this matchup against the fastest paced team over the last month.
Yeah, he's one of my highest owned guys in my initial crunches. I got like almost 30% of him at small forward on FanDuel. I got like 45% on DraftKings, where obviously you can roster him at 2 very weak positions. I like the spot. I really like the DraftKings price tag too. I don't know why he's 5,800. Like, his minutes are going up.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, his minutes are going up. He's been very, very good as the point guard. I know Oklahoma City's good defensively, but they also play incredibly fast. I just have no reason not to like Winslow here.
Yep, me too. I can't really say the same about anybody else. When it comes to Richardson and Johnson came off the bench last game, his production is so erratic. Everybody else, it's tough for me to get to. And we expect Dwayne Wade to be back, so who knows what the minutes for these other guards will look like. For me, it's really Winslow here. Is there anyone else that you like for Miami?
I'm getting a lot of Tyler Johnson and a lot of Dwayne Wade on DraftKings. The price tags are just cheap enough, and the positions are weak enough that they're popping into a lot of lineups. Just because I've Wade at 26 minutes, I have Johnson at 30. They're just getting in lineups. I'm on FanDuel, not getting as much of those guys. Did get a little bit more James Johnson at power forward.
So what do you have Waders at now that Wade's expected back?
18 minutes.
Okay. And then Ellington just
16.
Losing. Yeah, right. So cut his minutes in half.
Yeah, I'm expecting Tyler Johnson to rejoin the starting lineup over Ellington.
Okay, which would make sense. Let's talk about OKC. I think it's a very interesting dynamic on DraftKings and FanDuel, because on DraftKings, Westbrook's 11,000 and Paul George is 9,900. Sub 10K for a guy that's just been on fire recently, and it's no fluke. We'll get into that in a second. And then on FanDuel, Westbrook's 11,600 and George is 11-4. I never thought I'd see the day where Paul George would be basically the same price as Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, and actually getting more of both of them on FanDuel. DraftKings, I think that I'm just getting to cheaper, the cheaper guards on DraftKings, whereas on FanDuel you have to roster 2-point guards. You don't have some of the cheaper guards there. So I got like 45% Westbrook in my first crunch on FanDuel. Not the best spot for him. Miami is a competent team defensively, but the position's pretty weak, and it's still Russell Westbrook, so there's plenty of upside there. And for George, it's just that the small forward position's weak. He came in at around 10% for me on FanDuel, around like 6% on DraftKings. I don't love the matchup here. I would like to pay down at this position where I can, but I think that he's still somewhat valuable on FanDuel just because of the weakness of the position.
Yeah, on DraftKings 9,900, George is $1,100 cheaper than Westbrook there, and he's just been really productive. I mean, if you take a look, a deeper look into his numbers, he not only is 9,900 for what he's done really solid, but he's averaging 57 DraftKings points and 1.5 fantasy points per minute over his last 7. But the big thing is he's playing 38 minutes a game. Like every night that's competitive, you're getting 38, 40 minutes from Paul George. And this is consistently. With Russell Westbrook, you're definitely getting big minutes, but really Paul George has been the one that just gets monster run every single night. 29% usage and very solid peripherals across the board. So I really think, well, number one, I agree with you that I'd love it to be against a team that wasn't Miami. I have respect for their defense, but one of them is averaging a triple-double for his third straight season, and his triple-double in each of his last like 3 or 4 games, which just kind of last 4 games, which shows you the guy's upside. Westbrook's upside is nuts. And then with Paul George, small forward's not only weak, but particularly on DraftKings, he's 9,900. So yeah, I am getting there. Are you getting to anywhere else on OKC?
No, not really.
Okay.
Or not at all.
Okay, if it's not really, talk to me about. But yeah, there's not really anybody else here. Terrence Ferguson, there's this pierogies again. Terrence Ferguson is questionable to play, but even though this guy's played, a lot of minutes rates recently, there's nobody that can come into the lineup and actually have a significant impact. Unless you were to start like Schroeder ahead of him, which would make no sense because then your bench depth is completely decimated. But if it's like Alex Abrines, who if he comes in and starts, we already know that there's going to be virtually zero opportunity for whoever starts if Ferguson is out.
Right. And Ferguson did go through a full practice yesterday.
Okay.
So I have him in right now. But if he's out, the only thing that I think really changes is maybe you can get a couple more minutes for Schroeder potentially.
All right, let's keep it going. We got 2 games to go. As always, stick around after the show. Live Before Lock crew going to close out the weekday for you and the week. Chris and Eddie taking you from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern time, right up until that lock. Utah, Atlanta. You said to me today, I found this to be a pretty funny statement. You said, where is it? I got to find it. Oh man, I should have just had it. But basically you said, oh, here it is. I'm not sure there has been a more wholly unappealing team all season than the Atlanta Hawks tonight.
Yeah,
they're 11.5 point dogs on the road, a 226 point total against one of the better defensive teams in the league, against one of the slower teams in the league, or at least middle of the road. What a dreadful spot for Atlanta, which doesn't even take into consideration, everything I just mentioned. Doesn't even take into consideration the fact that now that this team's getting healthy, you have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. They played 13 players. I know it was a blowout last game, but 13 players played in total. I get it was a blowout, but the point is that Lloyd Pierce, there are so many players that he can use here that even if you did like somebody at a cheap cost, you don't even know what their minutes are going to look like unless it's obviously the guys that you're paying for.
Right. And 2 games ago in a competitive game, the most we saw was like 31.4 minutes from Trae Young.
Mhm.
And if you just look at like the first half of last game and try and extrapolate minutes that way, Jeremy Lin played 0 minutes alongside Trae Young. So now I have him back to 18 minutes. You have Bazemore probably playing around 20 minutes. You had Herter probably at like 26. You have Dedmon, who you had Collins picking up minutes at center so that Spellman can play more.
Yep.
So I only have Dedmon at 24 minutes. I have Len at 18 with the rest of the center minutes going to Collins. I don't have anyone on this team projected for more than 30 minutes in a absolute trash spot going into Utah. And the only guys who are actually good are expensive and playing 30 minutes in a bad matchup. So I just don't see it.
No. And we've seen lineups of like Lynn, Bembry, Prince, Spellman, and Len off the bench. There's so many different variations of these lineups that you're getting right now that you really don't know where the minutes are coming from. And, you know, when Collins was seeing a lot more minutes before, but now they're getting healthy. Alex Len had been out for a period of time. Bazemore and Prince had been out. Like, you look at this team now, and they're all healthy. They're all healthy outside of Miles Plumlee and like Tyler Dorsey. Everyone's healthy, and it just makes it, as you said, wholly unappealing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get an idea of this team, just go to Popcorn Machine and look at at their last game, like the rotations. I mean, Bembry played 3 minutes and 46 seconds to start the game and then went to the bench. Young played 5:55. Herter played 4:46. Like these guys, nobody except for John Collins played more than 6 minutes in their first rotation, and then they kind of came back and did the same thing to start the second quarter. It's just it's like a intramural city league basketball team where everyone has to play full minutes.
Yep. Look at their game against the Clippers. In the second half, you had Bembry, Collins, and Trae Young play 4 minutes and 38 seconds to start the half. Kevin Herter plays 9.5 minutes. Dedmon plays 6:20. But for three of these guys, Young, Bembry, and Collins, two of whom are the only ones you ever want to play, played 4:38. And two of them didn't come back until very much later. Collins didn't return until the fourth quarter. It's all over the place. It's all over the place, and I'm not interested in figuring it out in a highly suboptimal spot to begin with.
Right. Yeah, even if you get a couple extra minutes from someone, you still have to have them produce well in a pretty tough spot.
We spent too much time on the Hawks. Let's talk about Utah, which should be equally fun. I think somebody like Ingles is fine. It's kind of funny that remember when Rubio, Neto, and Exum all went down, and you and I were kind of surprised that Ingles wasn't getting any additional run. Well, now Rubio's back, and Ingles is playing 36 minutes per game in close games recently. He's not the worst play against Atlanta, but I'd love to know where you stand on guys like Rudy Gobert, who's 85 on DraftKings, 92 on FanDuel. I just keep finding myself getting down to more so Marc Gasol over Gobert. It's not to say he's a bad play, of course, because it's a good spot, but taking the savings on Gasol to me has been a little bit more appealing. What are you doing with Utah?
Yeah, I've been getting more Gasol than Gobert as well, but I do have Gobert as my third highest owned center on DraftKings.
Center's pretty weak tonight.
I like, well, it's not like a lot of names, but it's a lot of guys that I really like.
Okay.
Like,
really?
I really like Jokic. I really like Gobert. I really like Gasol.
Okay.
The rest
yeah,
of the match, but
I really well, okay, yeah. Then we're on the same page. Except I don't think I like Gobert quite as much as you do. I like Jokic a ton. I like Gasol a lot. And man, I'm so tempted to play Hassan Whiteside, but we all know how that ends most nights.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I really like Gobert. Like, it's a fast-paced Atlanta team that shoots really poorly. Gobert is my second highest owned center on FanDuel right now. And also you have Trae Young, who's one of the league leaders in drives per game. You have Gobert in there to pick up blocks. It's, I think, just a really, really good spot for Gobert. So I like him. I like Ricky Rubio, who I think can play around 30 minutes if this game stays remotely competitive. And he's underpriced at a weak point guard position. Donovan Mitchell, I think, is a much better play on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings because you have to roster two shooting guards at a weak position. And because I think the price tag's just a little bit better for Mitchell on FanDuel. Ingles, I think, is better, more appealing on DraftKings, but again, it's a weak small forward position, so I don't have a problem with it. One thing I am doing, though, is I'm limiting how much I get of the ball handlers here. Like, I don't really want Mitchell and Rubio together if I can help it. I don't really want, Rubio and Ingles together. I'm trying to maximize those guys' ceilings by keeping them apart.
I think Mitchell's overpriced, man. I'm having a tough time with that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really get any on DraftKings. I got a lot on FanDuel.
Yeah, 88 on FanDuel is quite a bit different. 88 on DraftKings, that's a steep price for him, especially with Rubio and most of the important players on this team healthy.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in context, on the initial crunches I did, he was my highest owned shooting guard on FanDuel, and I got him at 6% on DraftKings.
Okay, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Yeah, 6 to me. Just there's not really a lot of appeal on DraftKings at all. 8,800 there. It's going to be tough for Mitchell to get there, even against Atlanta. And there's obviously the concern. I sound like a flip flopper here, but this is a game that I don't expect to stay even remotely close.
Yeah. One thing to point out, though, as far as that goes, is that for the most part, Quinn Snyder in these home games leaves his guys in. Like, if it's like a 30-point game at the end of the third, he'll pull them to some extent, at least. But we've seen him for a couple of years now, where like it'll be a 20-point game with 6 minutes to go in the fourth, and he'll put his starters back in until the 2-minute mark.
Yeah, he's actually done it when they were down too.
Yeah,
down by that much at home. It's an interesting thought. You wonder, is he doing it for the fans? I don't know.
That's the only thing that I can think of.
Right. Why else would he do it?
Right.
We've seen Jaeger do some crazy stuff on the road, right? Like literally not play his starters for more. His starters played like a combined 28 minutes to one game.
Yeah.
That was just.
Oh right, yeah.
You remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, I think Fox played like 4 minutes. Cauley-Stein played 7. Bogdanovich played 6. Bjelica played 5. I think Buddy Hield played like 25. So maybe they got a combined 38 or something. But it was just dreadful.
Yeah.
Do you have any Joe Ingles now that his minutes are way up?
Yeah, he's right now. I have like 36% on DraftKings and like 20.
I like him tonight.
What position is he on FanDuel?
He's small forward.
Where the hell is he? I guess probably because I said not to play him with Mitchell, so I'm not really getting any there. But once I fix that, I'll be getting him on FanDuel also. Oh, never mind. I was looking at the wrong group. Okay, yeah, I think I was around 25% on FanDuel and like 35 on DraftKings right now.
Yeah, pretty reasonable. Only because you're getting him at a nice discount. The minutes to me are important, though. I mean, he really was. You had pointed this out a lot, that he was playing like 29, 30 minutes with Rubio out. And now you look 37, 36, 33, 36, 27. But that last game was a massive blowout loss. A lot of minutes. I mean, if it blows out, that won't be the case. He'll probably still get 32 or so. But, upside at 36, 37 minutes for Ingles is pretty appealing because he's not expensive. So I like that. But let me point out, by the way, I still like Winslow a lot more than Ingles on DraftKings where they're the same price, just so we're clear.
Yeah, I mean, I said I had, in the initial crunch, I had 36% Ingles. I had like 45% Winslow.
Okay. You want to close it out with Denver-Houston?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it. Denver at home, 3.5-point favorites, 224 total. We had some questions on whether or not Chris Paul would play here with a different injury, a sore back this time. God, he is one brittle man. He is active. He will play. The question for me, though, is and Jamal Murray's out, by the way. Jamal Murray's out. Gary Harris is questionable. And Nene is questionable. We'll talk that's a different story. We got into that earlier today. It's very strange. But there were reports on the same site that came out an hour from each other that were both totally contradictory. But with Chris Paul, there was the expectation that he'd play, upwards of 30 minutes after being limited in his first 2 games back to 25 and 26. But then he's questionable. So do we see him stay at 25, 26? Or was this just a minor concern and he will get back to 30 tonight? That's a pretty big question for me.
Yeah, I have him at 30, but the thing that makes me feel a little bit better is that I'm not really getting much of him even at 30 minutes. So
it wasn't about playing him for me, though. It was more just about the rest of this team.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like 4 minutes I mean, I guess that is like 8 more points for Harden, but
Well, and if you're someone that's considering Eric Gordon, I'm not a big Eric Gordon guy, but yeah, look, I'm not saying 5 minutes is the biggest difference in the world, but to some extent, when it comes to a guy that produces 2 fantasy points per minute with Chris Paul off the court, I'll take every second I can get.
yeah, so I mean, I have Paul at 30 minutes right now. I don't think he goes higher than that. And the result is that I'm still getting very little Chris Paul, especially with the guard value that's opened up. I'm still getting a pretty good amount of James Harden. He came in those initial crunches around like 20 to 25% on DraftKings and around 30% for me on FanDuel. So even with Paul projected to where I think is probably his minutes cap here, I'm still getting a lot of Harden. I'm still not getting much Paul, not getting much Eric Gordon, not getting a whole lot of anything else other than James Harden from Houston.
Me too. Well, I actually think Kenneth Faried's a fine play. I expect him to get his minutes back up to around 35 today, maybe 34. Last game was strange, though. He did not close that game out, and Jahlil Okafor was on the court. Now, the Pelicans were very small everywhere else to close the game out, but Kenneth Faried did not play. Aside from that, though, he had been closing games out. He played 36 and 38 minutes over his last 2 games prior to that, and his numbers since joining the Houston Rockets have been solid. You're looking at, a usage rate of 22%, 16.5% rebounding rate, very solid, 1.1 fantasy points per minute. If he gets 36 minutes, I'm perfectly fine with that. The thing here, though, is we don't know what's up with Nene. There was an initial report that he would sit on the first end of a back-to-back, and then there's a report that he was removed from the injury report and was expected to play. So I don't know right now. I still expect Faried to get the minutes. I still expect Nikola Jokic to just eat him alive. But what other options do you have at center to combat somebody like the 7-foot Nikola Jokic? Kenneth Faried might not be a big dude, but he can play center and he can play with bigger players. So very interesting matchup here between this front court and Nikola Jokic.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I have Faried at 34 minutes too. He's just priced up enough to where I'm still not really getting to him all that much.
Yeah, he is getting up there. 69 on DraftKings. What's he? 74 on FanDuel. He's the most 79. He's the most expensive power forward. I still think 69 on DraftKings is reasonable enough, but definitely not a priority play. Someone asked PJ Tucker or Clint Capella or Bam Adebayo on FanDuel. Well, that's not fun. Give me the cheaper one.
I have more Adebayo than Tucker right now.
You have like 6 and 7%.
7 and 3.
Okay, I was close.
Yeah,
I was close. What if J. Michael Green is active and Jaren Jackson's out, and we know that prior to lock? Would you roll the dice on J. Michael Green over Tucker or Adebayo at 3,600?
I have more Green than Tucker or Adebayo, even with Jaren Jackson projected in.
Would you look at that? All right. I'm always hitting
8% to 7%.
Always hitting you with the good questions on the deeper dive. All right, let's talk about the Denver Nuggets and we'll close it out. By the way, if you haven't checked out awesemo.com yet, we'd love to have you over there to check the site out and hopefully become part of the community. And right now, if you sign up, you get 50% off, half off your first month at awesemo.com. Very simple, too. All you have to do is go to the awesemo.com homepage, click on Join Now, and select your plan. Click on coupon code, have a coupon, and when you click that, you will enter Deeper Dive, one word, all one word, Deeper Dive, and then check out. And there you go. You get 50% off, half off your first month at awesemo.com. You get access to our premium Slack chat, which is a very useful thing to have. Our projections, ownership projections, which we reference every day on the show. And of course, Awesemo, Alex Baker, guy that, the face of the website, face of our brand. All of his content, his rankings, the lineup builder, and projections and content for every other DFS sport. So check it out. Deeper Dive, one word, is the promo code, half off your first month at awesemo.com. Adam, Denver, we both love Nikola Jokic. Not really sure we need to spend much time on him. You can if you want. But I think it would be more interesting to talk about the likes of Monty Morris, who's very cheap on FanDuel, shooting guard eligible, and Will Barton, and even maybe Paul Millsap.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic, I absolutely love. There's no reason not to, and I agree that you don't. At this point, you shouldn't have to get very far into why we like Jokic. He's just
Exactly.
absolutely amazing. Josh and I talked about it this morning. I think you agree too. It wouldn't be surprising at all to me. Actually, I would expect Torrey Craig to join the starting lineup in this particular matchup against James Harden. My guess is that Will Barton goes to the bench because he's just a better fit there, and it makes more sense to have Monte Morris the running point with the first unit and then having Will Barton as a scorer off the bench. So I'm projecting it that way. It doesn't change a whole lot for me. Like I'm giving Craig 28 minutes. I still have Barton at 28. I have Morris at 34. I like Morris. I don't. We haven't projected for like 51% ownership on FanDuel right now. I didn't get that high. If he comes in that popular, I'll be under the field on him just because I know he's coming off of a monster game, but we do have a pretty healthy sample size of him playing alongside Jokic without Jamal Murray on the floor, and he averages about 0.75 fantasy points per minute. So I don't want to get too enamored with what he did in the last game. I still think that he's a good value play, particularly on FanDuel, but I don't feel the need to get to him in 51% of my lineups. Paul Millsap, I think, is a little bit underpriced. I have no problem getting to him in some lineups. Same goes for Gary Harris, but my number one priority here is still just Jokic.
Me too. I do like that Monty Morris price tag on FanDuel, though. By the way, he had 14 potential assists last game, second to Jokic, and was second in touches with 90 in that last game. Amazingly, though, I mentioned this to you, he had 0 drives in 40 minutes at point guard. That's crazy, Adam.
Yeah, that's insane. When you asked me, I assumed it was going to be like a high number, and
I know
it wasn't.
I know it's absolutely crazy. Ringrim said he only went off because Barton was in foul trouble. Well, no, who Morris? Are we talking about Morris? No, he's still got minutes though. If he's still going to get run if he starts at the point. I mean, look, he's a perfectly fine point guard play at what is he $4,000-$4,500 at a bad shooting guard position. Look, I'm not saying he's a spectacular play. But at 4,500, if he starts at the point again, I don't need him to quote unquote go off. Put it that way.
Right. I got a lot more of him on FanDuel than DraftKings.
Right, as you should. Let's head out. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We wish you the best of luck tonight. Have a great weekend. And before you head out, it really helps us if you hit that thumbs up button, but only if you appreciate our content and want to see more. We're not we're asking you to go against your morals here. But like the video if you appreciate it and you want to see more of it. Subscribe, hit that notification bell so you always know when content's dropping. Live Before Lock with Chris and Eddie coming up next. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Good stuff.